They met unexpectedly in an online community, where what began as a short conversation about a song turned into long nights filled with shared memories, jokes, and secrets they had never told anyone else. As days passed, their connection grew naturally, almost effortlessly, as if their hearts had known each other long before their names ever appeared on a screen. He felt understood in a way he had silently wished for, and she found comfort in someone who listened without judgment. Yet, a strange pattern always worried him. Whenever he suggested a video call, meeting in person, or even exchanging recent photos, she withdrew, offering excuses that sounded sincere but fragile. "Not yet. I'm not ready," she would write, her messages carrying a quiet fear he couldn't ignore. Eventually, his feelings grew too powerful to exist only digitally, pushing him to seek the truth. But when he finally steps closer to her real life, he discovers that her distance is not rejection, it's pain, rooted in a wound she has hidden for years, one that could either break them apart or bring them closer than they ever imagined. Ethan first saw her username appear in a comment thread buried deep in an online music forum, somewhere between an argument about guitar tones and a joke only 3 people seemed to understand. Her name was simple, Luna, but the way she wrote caught his attention. While others argued loudly in all caps, she answered kindly, with patience and a strange mix of humor and melancholy that felt familiar. He hovered over the reply button for a while, rereading her message. It wasn't anything extraordinary, just a long explanation about why a certain song felt like a hug from the past and a slap from the future at the same time. But the line stayed stuck in his mind. He had never heard anyone describe music like that. Before he could overthink it, he typed back. "What a strangely perfect way to describe that song," he wrote. "Now I can't unhear it." He almost deleted the message 3 times before pressing send. On the other side of the screen, somewhere he couldn't picture, Luna saw the notification pop up. Her day had been a blur of work, unfinished tasks, and the familiar weight of a lingering insecurity that followed her everywhere she went. Replying to strangers online was easy. Real life was not. She opened his profile out of habit. No profile picture, just an abstract drawing of a city skyline at night. A few posts about bands she liked, a couple of self-deprecating jokes, and one old thread where he had written about how a certain song helped him crawl out of a dark season of his life. There was something honest about the way he wrote. Awkward, but honest. She smiled, just a little, and started typing back. "You're welcome. That song ruined my ability to listen to it like a normal person, so I had to drag someone with me." He laughed when he read that, the sound surprising even himself in the quiet of his bedroom. The conversation continued, slowly at first, a comment here, a reply there, always under the same post. Over the next few days, they noticed each other appearing more often. Whenever Ethan logged in, he would scroll through the forum, hoping to see her username glowing in a new thread. Whenever Luna posted, a part of her wondered if he would show up in the comments again. Eventually, one of them suggested moving the conversation to private messages. It was midnight for him, and probably late for her too, but time zones didn't matter much when you were already used to losing sleep. He sent the first DM, half expecting her to ignore it, half hoping she wouldn't. Since we're already ruining songs together, it feels fair to upgrade to proper conversation. No pressure, obviously. The typing indicator disappeared, appeared again. That's a very dramatic way of saying hi, but I'll allow it. From that night on, their chats became part of their routine. They joked about everything, from bad album covers to weird food combinations. They shared playlists and random voice notes of them humming melodies or making fun of a song that got stuck in their heads. They talked about childhood memories, fears, and the strange feeling of not fitting into the version of adulthood they were told about as kids. Ethan found himself checking his phone more often than he wanted to admit. He would catch himself smiling at messages in the middle of the grocery store or rereading old conversations when he couldn't sleep. Luna, on the other hand, started leaving her notifications on for the first time in months. Whenever her phone lit up and his name appeared, the heavy fog around her thoughts seemed to thin out just a bit. He wrote one night, "Isn't it weird that I feel like I've known you longer than some people I've actually met in person?" She answered, "It's less weird if you think about how fake most in-person conversations are. Half of them are just small talk in disguise." He stared at her message for a moment, feeling seen in a way he hadn't expected. It was true. With her, there was no need to pretend he was fine when he wasn't. No need to adjust his tone or hide the strange thoughts that sometimes spilled out at 2 a.m. She responded to his honesty with her own, sometimes clumsy, sometimes poetic, always real. Still, there was one line she never crossed. Whenever the subject of video calls came up, Luna dodged it with precision. If he joked about finally matching a face to the person who sent the perfect playlist for his bad days, she would send a laughing emoji, change the topic, or suddenly remember a deadline. If he suggested they trade pictures, she answered with old photos, heavily filtered or taken from far away, always at an angle that showed very little of her. She said, "I'm camera cursed. Every picture of me looks like a before photo." He laughed, but a small part of him wondered if she was serious. He didn't push. He told himself it didn't matter. He liked her mind, her humor, the way she somehow understood the things he didn't say out loud. And yet, late at night, his imagination filled the gaps where her face should have been. He pictured her laughing, frowning, rolling her eyes at his bad jokes. He pictured her sitting at a desk, curled up on a couch, walking down a busy street with headphones on. For Luna, hiding behind the screen felt safer than anything else. Behind her words, she could control the version of herself the world saw. She could edit, delete, rewrite. She didn't have to watch anyone's expression change the moment they saw her. Didn't have to read disappointment in their eyes. The digital distance allowed her to be braver than she ever was offline. So she kept that distance carefully guarded. As long as he stayed on the other side of the glass, she could believe, at least for a while, that she was enough. No mirrors, no harsh lighting, no comparisons. Just words, music, and a boy who made her feel less alone. Days flowed together in a quiet rhythm neither of them wanted to break. Their conversations deepened in ways that surprised them both. What started as jokes about music slowly evolved into something richer, heavier, more vulnerable. They talked about the things they feared most: loneliness, failure, the feeling of being too much and not enough at the same time. Ethan shared pieces of his life he usually kept hidden, and Luna, cautiously at first, gave him fragments of her heart she had never offered to anyone offline. One night, after a long exchange of voice notes, Ethan asked her, almost without thinking, "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to talk in person? Like, really see each other?" The message hung between them, glowing on their screens. Luna stared at it, heart pounding. She typed 3 different replies before settling on a short one. "Sometimes, but I'm not good at being seen." He didn't fully understand what she meant, but he felt the weight behind the words. He reassured her gently, making it clear that he wasn't pushing, that he was simply curious. She answered with a relieved emoji and changed the subject. He let it go, for the moment. But the question stayed with him for days. Their bond kept growing despite the invisible wall between them. They watched movies together, hitting play at the same time and sending commentary back and forth. They made ridiculous bets about plot twists, shared screenshots of their favorite scenes, and argued lovingly about which characters deserved better. Occasionally, they fell asleep mid-conversation, only to wake up to a flood of missed messages. It felt real, even if it wasn't physical. But the deeper they fell into this digital closeness, the more Ethan felt the urge to know her beyond the screen. Her laugh and voice notes sounded warm, soft, but he wanted to see the way her face changed when she smiled. He wanted to see her eyes when she talked about something she loved. He wanted to know if she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was shy, or if she bit her lip when she was nervous. Meanwhile, Luna found herself torn between longing and fear. She liked Ethan more than she intended to. She liked the way he listened, not just to her words, but to the pauses between them. She liked how he remembered the smallest details, like the song her mother used to sing while cleaning the house, or the way she hated thunder but loved rain. She liked how he talked about his dreams with an honesty that felt rare. But every time she imagined showing him her real self, the unedited, unfiltered version, her stomach tightened. She pictured his expression falling, even slightly. She imagined him hesitating, pretending nothing was wrong, slowly texting less and less. She had lived through people pulling away before, and the thought of reliving that with someone she genuinely cared for terrified her. One afternoon, Ethan sent her a picture of his breakfast, a terrible-looking omelet that had clearly gone wrong. He wrote, "I tried. I failed, but I tried." She laughed harder than she had in days. She sent a photo of the tea she was drinking, only her mug, nothing more. He noticed, of course, that she never included herself. He asked, "Do you hate photos, lightly?" "Let's just say they don't like me," she answered. He sensed that pushing would only make her retreat, so he let the subject drop. Still, the distance gnawed at him quietly. Weeks later, something changed. Ethan found himself thinking of her during moments she wasn't even online, while brushing his teeth, while folding laundry, while staring at the sky during lunch breaks. Her presence had slipped into the empty spaces of his days. He knew he was falling, maybe already too deep. Then came the night that shifted everything. Luna had been unusually quiet all day. He messaged her twice with no reply. By evening, worried gnawed at him. When she finally appeared online, she wrote, "Bad day. Don't want to drag you down." "You're not dragging me anywhere," he replied. "Talk to me." A long pause followed. Then, "I don't want you to see me the way I see myself." It was the most vulnerable thing she had ever said. Ethan reread it several times, feeling something inside him tighten. She wasn't talking about a bad hair day or feeling tired. She was talking about something deeper, something raw. "Luna," he typed slowly, "whatever you think is wrong with you, it's not enough to scare me away." But she didn't reply, not for hours. When she finally did, she wrote, "I wish I believed that." That night, after she fell silent, Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling. He felt helpless, restless, full of a need to understand. Who exactly was she behind the soft voice notes and poetic messages? Why did she believe she wasn't worth being seen? The distance between them, once comforting, now felt like a barrier he could no longer accept. He wanted to be there, not just digitally, but physically. He wanted to know the whole story, even the painful parts. The next morning, without fully thinking it through, he booked a ticket to her city. His heart raced as the confirmation email appeared on his screen. He knew this decision could change everything, for better or for worse. But one thing was clear. He couldn't stay on the other side of the screen anymore. The morning of his trip felt unreal. Ethan packed lightly, just a few clothes, a worn notebook, and the headphones Luna once recommended because they made sad songs feel less lonely. On the way to the airport, he rehearsed dozens of possible scenarios in his head. Maybe she would be angry, maybe she would panic, maybe she wouldn't want to see him at all. But beneath all the anxiety, there was a quiet certainty. He needed to try. He needed to understand the girl who had become the most important part of his days. During the flight, he stared out the window, the clouds reflecting the uncertainty swirling inside him. He replayed every conversation they'd had, looking for clues he had missed. There were moments when she had almost opened up, moments when her voice softened, or when her messages took on a heaviness that hinted at something deeper. He felt a sting of guilt. Had he been too focused on wanting more, without realizing how much she struggled just to give what she already did? When the plane landed, his hands shook slightly as he turned his phone back on. New messages from Luna appeared. Short ones, nervous ones. Good morning. Sorry for yesterday. Hope you're okay. He swallowed hard. She had no idea he was only a few miles away now. He wrote back, I'm okay, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. She replied almost instantly, that means more than you think. He hesitated before typing, afraid his hands might give away the tremor in his heart. How's your day going so far? He asked. Overwhelming, she wrote, but I'm trying. Her honesty struck him harder than usual. He wished he could close the distance in a single step, sit beside her and simply let her breathe without fear. Instead, he walked through her city, seeing fragments of her life in everything. The little cafes she mentioned, the bookstore she loved, the park she always described as her quiet corner of the world. He passed a bakery and stopped abruptly. She once told me about a pastry she loved but rarely bought for herself because she felt silly getting something so sweet alone. He stepped inside and ordered two, even though he had no plan for what he'd do with them. As he walked toward the park she mentioned countless times, Luna sent another message. Today feels heavy. Can we talk later? His chest tightened. He wanted to tell her he was already here, that he could show up in minutes. But he forced himself to wait. Surprising her without warning would only worsen her fear. So he wrote gently, of course, take your time. He reached the park and sat on a bench under a tall tree, the same spot she once described as her thinking place. He imagined her there, knees drawn up, headphones in, staring at the world as if trying to piece herself back together. He wished he could see her in that moment, not to judge, but to understand. Hours passed slowly. The city changed around him as the sun dipped toward the horizon. People laughed, walked their dogs, talked on the phone, lived their ordinary lives. Meanwhile, he sat still, waiting for a message that felt heavier than any he had ever expected. It finally arrived just after sunset. Ethan, can I tell you something without you thinking I'm ridiculous? His heart kicked against his ribs. You can tell me anything. There was a long pause. Too long. Then, I'm scared that if you knew what I look like or who I am outside the screen, you'd walk away. He exhaled slowly. The ache in her words settled deep inside him. He typed carefully, choosing each sentence like a fragile piece of glass. I'm not here because of a picture. I'm here because of you. Your mind, your heart, the way you speak about the world. Nothing you show me will change that. Again, a long silence. You say that now, but people change when reality does. I've seen it happen. His fingers froze. She didn't know, couldn't know that he was already in her city, sitting in the exact place she came to escape her own thoughts. He debated telling her, but fear whispered that she might shut down completely. Instead, he asked, what made you start hiding? For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then her messages came slowly, like drops of rain. Comments, comparisons, people telling me I wasn't enough. I started believing them. I'm sorry, he wrote. No one should carry that. It's not something you just drop. It sticks to you. Every time I look in the mirror, I hear their voices. He closed his eyes, wishing he could erase every cruel word he had ever heard, wishing he could shield her from the weight she still carried. Luna, he typed. If I could take your hand right now, I would. I'd show you that you're not alone. Another pause, but this one felt different. I wish you were here, she wrote quietly, just for a moment, just to breathe beside me. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. She had no idea how close he already was. He tightened his grip on his phone and made a decision. Not impulsive, not reckless, but steady and certain. Tell me where you are, not to push you, just so I can understand your world a little bit better. This time, her answer came with surprising swiftness. A park near my place, my quiet spot. I come here when I feel overwhelmed.
He looked around. The bench, the trees, the path. He was already sitting in her quiet spot. His pulse hammered. He typed with trembling hands, "Are you there now?" A few seconds passed. Then, yes. And everything inside him shifted. The distance between them was no longer digital. It was only a matter of steps.
Ethan froze when he read her message. She was here, somewhere in the same park, breathing the same air, hiding behind the same shadows he'd been sitting with all afternoon. His pulse quickened, not from excitement alone, but from the weight of everything this moment meant. He stood slowly, eyes scanning the paths, the benches, the soft glow of lamps flickering to life as night settled in. He didn't want to startle her. He didn't want to break the fragile trust she had offered. So he moved carefully, quietly, letting instinct guide him. He walked past the fountain, past the swings where children had played hours earlier, past the old oak tree that seemed to hold stories of the city in its branches. Every step felt heavier, but also strangely right. He didn't need a picture. He didn't need certainty. He just needed to find the girl whose voice had become the anchor of his days. His phone buzzed again. A new message from Luna. "I'm on the bench near the pond. Hoodie, headphones, trying to look invisible." He swallowed hard. He knew exactly where that was. He glanced toward the pond, where the surface reflected the moonlight in trembling lines. And then he saw her. A girl sat on a quiet bench, knees drawn up, headphones around her neck, hoodie pulled low as if trying to shrink into herself, her hands twisted nervously, fingers nodding and unnodding, as though battling thoughts she couldn't silence. She wasn't looking up. She didn't know he was here. Yet. He stood a few steps behind her, frozen between caution and longing. This was the moment he had imagined countless times, but imagining and living it were worlds apart. She felt so familiar, and yet so impossibly fragile, like a secret the world had been too cruel to hold gently. His phone buzzed again. A new message from Luna. "I'm on the bench near the pond. Hoodie, headphones, trying to look invisible." He swallowed hard. He knew exactly where that was. He glanced toward the pond, where the surface reflected the moonlight in trembling lines. And then he saw her. A girl sat on a quiet bench, knees drawn up, headphones around her neck, hoodie pulled low as if trying to shrink into herself. Her hands twisted nervously, fingers nodding and unnodding, as though battling thoughts she couldn't silence. She wasn't looking up. She didn't know he was here. Yet, he stood a few steps behind her, frozen between caution and longing. This was the moment he had imagined countless times, but imagining and living it were worlds apart. She felt so familiar, and yet so impossibly fragile, like a secret the world had been too cruel to hold gently. His phone buzzed again. "Are you still there?" she typed. "Yeah." His voice trembled even in text. "Wish you were here." She wrote, "This place feels less scary when someone's beside me." His chest tightened. His thumbs hovered over the screen before typing, "Luna, look to your left." He watched her body stiffen, watched her head lift slightly, as if afraid of what she might find. Slowly, cautiously, she turned. Her eyes met his. For a moment, everything stopped. The park, the sounds, the night itself seemed to hold its breath. Her eyes widened, first fear, then disbelief, then something softer, warmer, even if faint. She didn't move. Neither did he. They just stared, suspended in a moment too big for either of them to process. He took a single step toward her. She flinched, not away, but inward, as though bracing for impact. His voice, when it finally came, was quiet, gentle. "Hi, Luna." She blinked rapidly,
her breath catching as though she had forgotten how to inhale. "Ethan." He nodded. "I'm sorry if this is too much. I didn't want to scare you. I needed to be here. For you." She stared at him, her expression shifting through fear, confusion, disbelief, and 100 unspoken feelings. She pulled her hoodie forward as if hiding behind it could shield her from being seen. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered, her voice trembling. You'll regret it." His heart ached at the pain behind her words. "I won't." "You don't know that," she said, looking away. Her voice cracked on the last word. "You don't know what you're seeing." Ethan stepped closer, but not too close, leaving space for her to breathe. He said, "I see you. Maybe not the way you fear, maybe the way I should have all along." Tears welled in her eyes, catching the glow of the street lamps. She wiped them with the sleeve of her hoodie, embarrassed. "I don't look like the photos I sent. I'm not what you expected." He replied, "I didn't come for a picture. I came for you. The girl who makes playlists like love letters. The girl who sends voice notes at 2 a.m. because she can't sleep. The girl who talks like every word matters." She let out a shaky laugh, the kind that sounded like it might break into tears. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to exist in front of someone without feeling wrong." Ethan slowly sat beside her, not touching, not crowding her, just close enough for her to feel his presence. "Then we'll learn together. You don't have to hide from me." Her breath trembled. "What if you change your mind?" He turned his head to her, meeting her frightened gaze. "Then I'll tell you. Honestly, kindly. But right now, I'm here. Fully, willingly. And nothing about you makes me want to leave." For a long time, they sat in silence, broken only by the quiet ripple of water in the pond. She finally lowered her hood. Her face was flushed with fear, raw and unmasked. She felt exposed, vulnerable, waiting for disappointment to take shape in his eyes. But Ethan only smiled, soft, warm, real. "You're beautiful," he said. Not as flattery, not as a cliché, but as a truth he discovered in that moment. She shook her head, tears slipping free. "Please don't say things you don't mean."
The days that followed felt unreal, as if the world had shifted its weight and settled into a softer shape around them. After their first meeting, Luna walked home with shaky steps, her mind replaying every second, every breath, every glance, every word Ethan had spoken with such gentleness. A part of her still expected him to disappear the next morning, as so many others had once done. But when she woke up, her phone held a message from him. Simple, steady. "Good morning, Luna. I'm still here." She stared at the screen, tears rising again, this time from something she hadn't felt in years: hope. They spent that day talking more openly than ever, not just about music or jokes, but about fear, anxiety, the wounds that shaped them, and the strange, fragile courage it took to let someone else see those wounds. Luna confessed how long she had hidden behind filters and angles, terrified that her real self would never be enough. Ethan listened without interruption, absorbing every word as if they were pieces of a puzzle he had been trying to solve since the day they met. They met again the next afternoon, this time in a quieter corner of the city. Luna arrived early, anxiety churning inside her, but Ethan greeted her with the same warmth, the same softness that had brought her courage the night before. He didn't look at her with pity, he didn't stare at her flaws. He simply looked at her, like someone worth knowing, worth staying for. It still felt foreign, but not as frightening as before.